KFI, Mr. Mo Kelly, we're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. So much to cover tonight. We're watching the Dodgers, who are up 5-2. We live and die with our Dodgers here in Southern California. I don't know if there is such a thing as an Angel fan. No, there's not. It's just Dodger fans. They're still up 5-2. We'll be monitoring that game. And some other news around Southern California. You may hear me and Tim Conway Jr. talk about the horses. I have an affinity for horse racing. I grew up with it. I can't remember exactly when I first learned to read a racing form. I appreciate my father for teaching me that. But I think times are changing in America, and with the recent spate of deaths of horses and horses which have been euthanized at Los Alamitos, we have to get into that and reassess what the future of horse racing may be. And do you remember on Monday, I told you about the story of 5 middle schoolers who were sickened. 3 were hospitalized for possible cannabis ingestion in Northridge, Nobel Charter Middle School to be specific. Well, today at a different middle school in Studio City, Walter Reed Middle School, 17 middle school students were treated for likely cannabis exposure. I don't like to be right all the time about certain things, and this is one of those things where I don't like to be right. I don't want to read another story about middle school children being sickened by most likely cannabis ingestion. But we'll talk about it in a bit. And also, you know, there's a war against shrinkflation that's going on. Well, 2 companies have bowed to the pressure. We'll tell you about how Tostitos and Ruffles are now changing the contents of their packages because of the cry against shrinkflation. But if you were listening to Mark Ronner prior to the show, you know what we have to do. It's that time in the program. Oh, and of course, my computer stops working.
You're going to leave me high and dry?
There we go.
I don't like the way that happened. I think you have to do it again.
Okay.
Yeah, do it one more time.
Are you ready this time?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
All right. Are you bracing yourself?
We're not to use the word brace around here in the newsroom.
Oh, okay.
That's not conversational English.
Are you prepared?
I'm prepared.
All right.
Oh, thank you. Okay, that's much better. Thank you.
I heard there's rain on the way.
Well, there's a 20% chance of it tonight. And if it rains, that becomes 100%.
What areas? Do you remember?
The sky, Mo. The rain comes from the sky.
I know. Ask a non-specific question. I get a non-specific answer.
In this area that we're living in.
Okay.
Is that good enough for you?
Okay, let's
20%, 1 in 5.
Let's review for the audience. I always like to know about me personally because it's only about me. I need to know if rain is going to be dropping on my head, not anyone else's.
Well, what I suggest is that when you go home tonight, stand outside.
But when is this supposed to show up?
Well, I don't have that information. I don't know how granular you think we get the weather information here, but 20% and tonight is about as specific as it's going to get right now. It might get more specific later as it starts to rain.
I was listening to your news break for one of the few times that I would ever listen to you.
Well, you're an important man. You have things to do.
I know. Keep it coming. Keep telling that truth. But you were talking about a contest or a job opportunity for someone who's into horror movies.
Yes.
And it seemed like it was perfect for you right up until the point where it wasn't perfect for you.
Where I said amateurs. You could tell I was spitting out the word amateurs on the air. Yeah, it's a joint called casino.org, and they want a horror movie tester. But this list of movies everybody's already seen. I'm sure you have The Exorcist. Yep. I know you've seen that.
Yep.
Hereditary?
No.
Oh, that's messed up. You have to see that. The Conjuring, you've seen.
Yes, I've seen that.
Those are those Ed and Lorraine Warren movies. Insidious from the same folks.
Yeah.
The Ring. Come on, everybody's seen that.
Yeah. Well, but here's the problem, because you're supposed to judge which one is the scariest. How can you judge a 1973 movie against a 2017 movie?
Well, apparently they're monitoring heart rates. So if you're just sitting there watching it and it causes a reaction, that's what they measure. And The Exorcist is still, I think, really effective. I've told before the story of how the long-suffering one during the Spinal Tap scene.
Yes.
Went and passed out in the theater lobby.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't in 1973 or whatever the year was it came out. This is when they re-released the movie in theaters just a few years ago.
But I think the whole idea of scary has changed over the years. There's such a thing as knowing that something's going to jump out and startle you, but that's not the same as being scared. There was a basic baseline of fear of The Exorcist. There was something ominous throughout the whole movie. And horror movies, and we go back and forth about the definition of horror, it's different from decade to decade. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. For me, a horror film would be like being stalked by the student loan people. Okay. I'm not afraid of supernatural stuff.
That's reality.
Yeah. I'm not a superstitious person. So a lot of these things for me involve the willing suspension of disbelief. But, it's like going on a carnival ride. You're safe. You're let off at the end. So I can get into The Exorcist as much as a hardcore Catholic could.
I get more into The Exorcist because the idea of supernatural is much more scary to me than, let's say, Jason going around Camp Crystal Lake and hacking up people.
Yeah, it's a whole different ball of wax. I mean, slasher movies are different than demonic possession movies. And one thing I like about the demonic possession movies is that they often tend to center around people who are having a crisis of faith. And when it starts to hit the fan, it doesn't matter what you believe, the stuff is happening and you've got to cope with it, right?
Right. And also there's something, when you say supernatural, there's something beyond our understanding, beyond our comprehension, beyond our control that you cannot fight, in the way that Jason, he may be kind of supernatural or superhuman because he's impossible to kill, but it's not like he's teleporting from room to room. You can see him when he's coming is going to cut your head off.
Yeah, that doesn't make it realistic. But these things tap into all sorts of primal fears that people have. Say zombie movies, being eaten is, you can draw a straight line between those and shark movies, okay?
Yeah, I guess so. So you're going to go enter the contest?
I think I am probably, pardon me for sounding immodest here, but I think I'm a little overqualified on the horror front to the point that maybe I need to be on a federal registry.
Fair enough. It's later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640. We are live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. When we come back, we're going to go to Los Alamitos and tell you what is going on there, and it's not good at all.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
If you didn't know, I grew up going to Hollywood Park, Santa Anita, Del Mar, all the horse racing tracks, even Los Alamitos a couple of times back in the day. My father loved horse racing, and I, so by extension, loved horse racing. And then you get older and society changes. Our sports landscape, our entertainment landscape evolves, and you can see society is moving away from horse racing. Tracks are being closed almost every year. There are fewer horse racing tracks in the country now than ever before. Part of it is because our concept of entertainment has changed. Let's just be honest. Using animals as entertainment is not the allure that it used to be. We can talk about SeaWorld. We can talk about greyhound racing. We can talk about the perception of cockfighting down south, the perception of dogfighting. Post Michael Vick, the idea of animals in sports, legal or illegal, is just completely changed, our level of tolerance and acceptance. So when I tell you about how 5 more horses have been euthanized in the Heath Taylor barn at Los Alamitos due to equine infectious anemia, know that it's going to be perceived differently in 2024 than maybe 1984. And these 5 euthanasia instances follows 7 other EIA positive quarter horses earlier this month at Los Alamitos. And all 12 of the horses were trained by Heath Taylor and stabled in his barn at Los Alamitos. An additional 6 horses from Taylor's barn at Lone Star Park tested positive for EIA, and say it with me, were also euthanized, meaning if not for the horse racing component, they would not have all been together. They would have not all been infected and then euthanized. The Equine Disease Communication Center also, and this is important, reported the death of a racing quarter horse in Bernalillo County in New Mexico. So this transcends state borders. This is probably not done. There are other horses in quarantine, but check this out. In total, 21 horses trained by Taylor have tested positive for EIA this year. 18 have been confirmed as euthanized as of today. That's unsustainable. That has nothing to do with whether you love horse racing. It has nothing to do with whether you want to go back to 1984 and the America that it used to be. That's unsustainable in today's America. Because we were talking yesterday, I should say, I was talking to Tim Conway Jr. yesterday about this new entertainment venue called Cosm, where it's almost like a semi-sphere, where you get to go to a stadium-like restaurant arena, and then you get to see live games, and you're in an immersive setting. It makes you feel like you're right there on the field. There are too many ways and too many competing ideas of entertainment and sports entertainment for horse racing to continue. We have sports betting for all the professional sports now, be it baseball, football, basketball, hockey even. You got different sports apps like DraftKings and Prize Picks. People don't have to leave their house to bet on sports. The audience for horse racing is simply dwindling. And if the only news you hear about horse racing is horses dying, that, and I'm not trying to be funny or even make a pun, that is killing the business. You can't expect Los Alamitos or any track to survive when horses are dying every week for whatever reason. If they're dying for an issue on the track, if they're dying because of EIA, if they're dying at all, that negative news media makes it much more difficult for anyone connected to the business of horse racing to survive. And not only that, horse racing is hell of expensive for trainers. Every aspect of it is extremely expensive, and businesses now are looking for ways to provide less expensive entertainment. And I grew up, I shouldn't say I grew up, I lived for the early part of my life within 5 minutes of Hollywood Park. I was there far more than a child should have been. So it's not like I'm talking about this from the outside, that I don't understand the allure and the history, the connection, the nostalgia with respect to horse racing and Southern California. I know it intimately, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I could go to Santa Anita tomorrow and probably have a great time. I'm just trying to keep my personal feelings out of this and recognize that the stuff that you ever realize that the things that you did 20, 30 years ago are probably not the thing to do now. I used to go to nightclubs when I was in my 20s. That's not something to do now. And you see fewer and fewer nightclubs. You see fewer and fewer lounges. The bar scene has changed. People change. Industry changes. Business change. Entertainment options change. If I were to ask Tuwala and his kids, I seriously doubt anyone in his kids' generation, with the exception of a few, have actually been to the horse races.
No, they have not. And not only have they not ever been, I would never take them. I came up on the other side, and growing up not far from Santa Anita Racetrack and going to the mall and hanging out in that area, I never understood horse racing. But even though it wasn't as publicized back in the day, horses dying on the track is not new. And I think I came to the knowledge of what happens to some of these horses from my aunt, who, rest in peace, raised horses, loved horses, groomed horses, all of that. And so I had a different affinity for horses. So for me, I look at these stories and I say to myself, how long before an individual like this is banned from the sport, period? Because not that this individual
just
or
this particular
incident and this particular breeder or horse racer is doing this on purpose, but you cannot be this callous and this cavalier with the lives of animals. You just can't. And I think to myself, this individual in particular should be shut down and banned from the sport, period. And this is just the roach that we know of. That's the problem that I have with it. We're hearing about this because too many have died for it to keep quiet.
21.
21.
21 have tested positive. 18 have been euthanized.
The roach theory says that this is not an isolated incident with just this breeder or this breeder's barn.
And I talk about it, Tuwala, you came at it from a completely different vantage point. I come at it from just talking about business, talking about the business of entertainment. Horse racing used to be kind of exclusive in Southern California because we did not have any gambling. You didn't have the Hustler Casino. You didn't have a Crystal Casino. You didn't have those places. Indian gaming was very, very new at that time. There weren't places for people to gamble. Then you go to a place like Hollywood Park, and then they had what they called off-track betting, where you go to Hollywood Park and bet the Greyhounds in Florida, or you could bet certain other sporting events or horse racing at different racing tracks. Like you can go bet Churchill Downs or something like that. That was off-track betting. Then as sports entertainment and gambling became more available to people, then horse racing fell out of favor by and large because you had other ways that you could bet. Also, the introduction of the California lottery took a lot of that appeal of horse racing because people could get their gambling on, if you will, by buying scratchers and playing lotto and super lotto. So the would-be gamblers had other things to do. And yes, you had your core enthusiasts, but part of why horse racing was so successful because it didn't really have any gambling competition. That is no longer true, and that will no longer ever be true because I don't have to leave my house. I got a phone and I can do all the gambling I want in California and around the country on all the major sports. Horse racing can't compete. Now there's that aspect, and there's also the aspect of cruelty to animals. And I don't think that they will be able to push aside the deaths of all these horses year after year after year and also stay in business. It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And when we come back, unfortunately, we got to go to another middle school, which is dealing with the issue of drug exposure and children being taken to the hospital because of what is thought to be edibles.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And when we talked about Diddy, I would say, hey, there is a pattern which is emerging here. You can see where a story is going and why there would be other similar incidents. This is something similar to that. When we talk about these poisonings of middle school students due to edibles, gummies, whatever, they're ingesting some form of THC. On Monday, we told you about the middle school in Northridge, Nobel Charter, where 5 students were poisoned, 3 were taken to the hospital. Now I have to tell you the number's up to 17 in Studio City at Walter Reed Middle School. And this started early this morning due to apparent overdoses by a number of these students. 17 were poisoned, 2 were taken to the hospital. And this, if you're not paying attention, if you're not recognizing the signs, you probably think that these are isolated incidents. I'm not saying they're connected, but they're not isolated. This highlights the fears that I've been having about the proliferation of edibles and THC products on campuses. And this is middle school. This is not even high school. We're talking about children who should have limited ability to get anything on their own, much less go to a convenience store. But to get a controlled substance, that scares the bejesus out of me. And if you have kids, I would hope that it scares you as well. 5 on Monday, 17 today. What is it going to be tomorrow? What is it going to be next week? And in both cases, had to be was connected to ingesting edibles. This incident at Walter Reed Middle School supposedly was connected to gummies. Quote, Today, we became aware that a group of students may have consumed a banned substance. That's Principal Paul DeBonis. He went on, quote, emergency personnel were contacted and students received medical attention. The parents of the affected students have been notified, close quote. And also LAFD Captain Eric Scott had this to say, quote, there was no evidence of any fentanyl type drugs. It was described as gummy bears that were ingested. That's still being evaluated and part of an active investigation. I'm not trying to ascribe motive. I'm not trying to say that it was the fault of this or that or this is the cause of it. But if you're not paying attention, this is the time. I need you to pay attention because there's probably going to be a similar styled event or incident in the near future because this is right in front of us. I go back to what I said on Monday. I did not want the legalization of marijuana in a recreational sense because I knew I was going to have this conversation in the near future. I didn't know when. I didn't know exactly why. In fact, I thought it was going to be high schoolers who probably were more inclined to experiment, more inclined to have access to this because they're not adults, but they're adults adjacent in many instances. And now you're having young teenagers, pre-teenagers, absolute children who are somehow, some way getting their hands on THC gummies. And they're going to the hospital. I'm not blaming the school because I don't think the school can prevent kids having quote unquote candy or something that's being brought on campus from off campus.
See, I don't know, because I do have to look at the schools, if only because anytime I've picked up my daughter early, say she was feeling ill or whatever the case, doctor's appointment, dental appointment, I always take note of how lax school security seems to be or how easy you can get access to the campus, how easy you can get access to students. They want to make this big deal about banning phones, but you're not actually watching the campus. When I had to go and pick my son up for fear that he was given some chocolate by someone one of his friends who just got a hold of some candy.
I didn't want to tell that story, but I was waiting for you to tell it.
Give it out. No, that happened. He was given some candy by a friend who was passing out candy in the class. And I had to go and take him. His heart started beating. He was scared. He knew because he's heard us have these conversations on the air, and I've had these conversations directly with him. So the instant he started feeling weird after eating some chocolate, he called immediately. Thankfully, he had what on him? He had his phone. Went to go get him, and they checked him out, and it was like, no, there's no traces, but they said it could have already left his system. They don't know. Huge investigation had to happen. My question was, how did it get on there? And the friend in question was like, I got it from someone from one of the other schools who walked it over.
Well, see, in that instance, it came from off campus. But let's say you have little Johnny. Little Johnny has an older brother or father who has some edibles in the house, and he decides to bring them to school. When we were kids, we know that kids would bring candy, air quotes, to school and pass it out, maybe share stickers, whatever. It's not uncommon for kids to share stuff that they have with their friends. Yes, you can stop possibly something coming on the campus from off campus, but you can't stop the kid who's getting it from his house, getting it from his siblings, or getting it from his dad or mom and bringing that to campus and then, just sharing with friends because they think it's cool or think it's funny or they don't understand the severity of it all.
Oh, no. We do not live in the age of innocence where children don't understand what a gummy is. We're not there anymore. They know damn well the difference between edibles and gummy bears, the Haribo gummy bears. They know the difference. Okay, the smell alone. At 12 years old, my daughter had a phone for emergencies, but I promise you, if she was on Pinterest or TikTok or whatever, she is fully aware of what an edible is. She does not engage because she knows who her parents are and how much we drill into her head with it. But we're not every parent. There are some parents who are like, just sit down and go get on your phone. And kids say, ooh, look what I've got. I'm going to bring it to school. Hey, try this. Try this. There are children who are in school who have medically prescribed gummies to help regulate their behaviors, to help regulate their system, who also may take advantage of that and spread those around.
Okay, so what do you want the school to do? Do you want kids to come in and empty their pockets before coming on campus?
Damn sure. If that's what we have to give, here's my thing. I'm all about protecting the kids. If that's what we have to do, go through the damn backpacks. Why will we not? You know, we may find weapons or anything else that they may bring in if you have to check bags. I don't want to hear about violation of privacy. You have no privacy. You're coming onto a private institution.
You're a child at that.
You're a child. You don't have any rights to not have your bag searched. If this is where we have to go there.
I agree. I mean, I can't really say anything, to dispute that, because the alternative is kids go to the hospital and die. So what outcome do you want? It's later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640. We are live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And when we come back, Tostitos, Ruffles, they have bowed to public pressure and they're going to stop engaging in shrinkflation. So they say. We'll tell you about it next.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Have you been in a grocery store recently, or maybe to the vending machine at your job? Like, we have a vending machine area here at KFI. And if you look at the potato chip bags, there's a whole lot of air in them and not a lot of chips in them. And you think, is this my imagination? And as time goes on, it seems like there's more and more air and fewer chips. They call that shrinkflation. And it's not your imagination. Companies have been raising the prices of their products. We know that's inflation, but also you're getting less in the same sized bag. You're getting a smaller serving for more money. Shrinkflation. And people have been pissed off. I've been mad. You've been mad. We've been complaining. We've been complaining on social media. We've been complaining like right now in traditional media. Well, PepsiCo, the owner of many of your favorite brands of potato chips, they're going to do something for you to counteract that. But the devil is in the details, as they say. PepsiCo, the owner of Lay's, Doritos, Tostitos, and Ruffles, they're saying that they're going to put more chips in some bags to get back customers like you and me who are tired of the higher prices and the fewer chips contained. A PepsiCo spokesperson told CNN that Tostitos and Ruffles bonus bags, they have the dirty nerve to call them bonus bags. Bonus bags will contain 20% more chips for the same price as the standard bags in select locations. So let's start from the beginning. You had normal bags. They started taking chips out for shrinkflation, and they were charging more for those bags. And they had the dirty nerve to put 20% more chips back in the bag, which only got you back to square one.
And then they call it a bonus.
Right. And they're still selling it for the higher price.
Look at the gall that takes.
And they released a press release saying, look at us. We are doing away with shrinkflation. No, they're not. But there's more. PepsiCo is also adding 2 additional small chip bags to its variety pack option with 18. So you get 2 small chip bags.
I hope you show the appropriate degree of gratitude for this act of largesse.
The dirty nerve to think that they're giving you what they originally promised you, let's say 6-7 months ago. They promised you X, Y, and Z, and they took out X, and they charged you more for Y and Z. And then they come back 6 months later and say, we're going to put the X back in X, Y, and Z, and we're still going to charge you the higher amount, and you better say thank you. Once again, Mark, we try to tell folks about capitalism. It's not inflation, it's greed.
Greedflation.
It is a distinct difference. Yes, the cost of producing goods may be more, but what retailers are doing, what companies are doing is over and above the supposed inflation.
I don't mess around when it comes to Funyuns.
You eat Funyuns?
What? This is a news flash to you?
No, I don't think I've ever eaten a Funyun in my freaking life.
Why do you hate America?
You've
never had a Funyun?
I don't think
Foosh, you want in on this?
It's been a minute. I've had.
What does that mean? Like 5?
Probably like
5 minutes?
Well, I'm not going to haul off and tell you in front of our massive audience that Funyuns are food or anything. I mean,
all right. Let's play a game. It's
Yeah.
called Yes or No.
Okay.
I'll give you a food, air quotes, item. Let's just say yes or no as to whether you eat them. Pig skins.
oh, like those pork rinds?
Pork rinds, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not a regular part of my diet,
No.
for God's sakes.
No?
That's poison.
Okay. Funyuns, you're a yes. Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Those are kind of nasty. I've tried them. What about
Nope.
you, Foosh?
I don't like spicy.
Some people love that stuff, but I've heard Tawala talk about his kid having a hole eaten through his stomach. So
Yes.
that'll act as a deterrent, won't
It's
it?
like acid in the stomach. It's not meant to be ingested.
No, that's landfill. That's you fill potholes with that stuff.
Is there anything in our kitchen that you won't eat? In our vending machine area?
Let's go the other direction. There's not a lot in our kitchen that I will eat.
Okay. I'm trying to think of the different candy bars.
Every single thing in the vending machine there is like taking a dare, some extreme form of culinary sadism that you wouldn't willingly endure.
I don't know who our vending person is, whoever stocks the vending machine, whatever company that
Somebody
is.
with a pretty good sense of humor.
Oh, they're not putting stuff in there that people actually want to buy. There's sandwiches in there like 3 weeks old.
Yeah,
I'm not
true.
exaggerating.
That's true.
No, this is only for a Walking Dead scenario when you're just busting out the glass and grabbing what you can and running.
Right, but it shouldn't kill me in the process. You know, it
Well,
shouldn't be
ideally, no.
I mean, but who, if they're not buying it, people are not buying it, then why is the vending machine company still selling it? Don't they like realize, oh, this is not selling. No one is actually buying these sandwiches.
Well, somebody's got to be, right?
I don't know because I checked the expiration date on them and they're not going anywhere.
You handle them?
Oh, gingerly.
You're handling the sandwiches?
I'm not touching the sandwiches that, it's the plastic on the outside, not the actual sandwich. I'm not opening the packages.
Give it a sniff?
No, I'm just saying I'm looking for the expiration date.
Okay.
Also, I did get one once, probably like 5 or 6 months ago. It's 90% bread and 10% of whatever meat is supposed to be in there.
Have you ever checked? Well, you're not old enough to care, but have you ever looked at the ingredients and the percentage of sodium? Oh, it's through the roof. It's through the roof.
Yeah, it's not health food.
And it's being used as like a preservative. That's part of the reason
true, yeah.
why it can sit on that refrigerated rack for weeks at a time.
Yeah, that's like break glass in case of emergency food in there. And I've been here 3.5 years and I've never once felt that it was urgent enough to eat like one of their entrees or a sandwich because, okay, so the lube you got to put on a sandwich like mayo or mustard or whatever.
The lube.
Yeah, the lube, the sandwich lube.
Otherwise, they're very dry.
Yeah, can we not get hung up on that, please? For that to stay on that bread for all that time, what are you getting when you open that up?
An invite to a Diddy party?
Go
Go ahead. I'll wait.
That's not a rim shot.
Yes, it is.
No.
Diddy party and rim shot do go together.
Do you have a gag sound effect, Foosh?
That would go with a Diddy party too.
Okay, please. If you're trying to get me fired, let's just move forward, please. But the bag thing's real. You started off
It's
talking
real.
about the
It's real.
shrinkflation. And, we all have like a Dorito. Even if you've never had a Funyun, this is a true thing. And those things are insanely overpriced. All junk food's overpriced to begin with. Like, $5 for a 9.25 ounce bag of Doritos? In God's name.
And here's the thing. It's still 9.25 ounces that they put on the bag when clearly it's not still 9.25 ounces in the bag.
If I can eat it in a sitting, there's something going on. And I'm not the problem.
Well,
Don't.
Well, like slow down.
No.
okay, that too.
Well, look at the time.
But I was going to say real quick, you're like, oh, is it my imagination? And I usually get a couple Gatorades before I come to work, Ralph's or Vaughn's, whatever. And I I was like, it seems smaller. And then the story came out that they marketed it as it's easier to hold in your hand. So the middle of the bottle curves in, so you're getting less. So once again, shrinkflation. So every angle.
Just get robbed every single time, every single way, by every single one.
Shrinkage is never good. Nobody wants shrinkage. We're up against the clock.
KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
I don't know what you're thinking, and I kind of like that. Keeps it fun.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live.